Nice to see all of you. We will get started in exactly 5 minutes. So go grab your tea, run to the restroom, whatever you need to do. But when you come back, I'd love to know, and Paula would love to know, where are you calling in from? So if you feel comfortable, the icon at the bottom of the screen says chat on it. Go ahead and click on that and let me know, let us know where you are calling in from. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Vanita.
Hi,
Hi,
Kathy.
Petra.
Yeah, we've got a lot of people coming in, joining. That's great.
Nobody wants us to know where they're calling in from, Paula. I feel
Kathy's from Elk Ridge. I knew that.
nice. Hi, Kathy. You're our neighbor. And Paula's calling in from Annapolis, and I'm in Towson,
Yeah,
Maryland.
we've got Maryland covered. I wonder if there's anybody outside of Maryland joining us today.
We have a few more minutes, so. Vanita, oh my goodness, turn on your audio. I have to see your beautiful face. We talk so much on the phone. You're still on mute, sweets. There you go. Hi.
Hi, I said I was
Hello.
still in my nightdress, so I was hiding myself.
That's okay. That's okay. Vanita's calling in from New York, right?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Awesome. It's
Wonderful.
great to see you. Great to see you.
We've got rain. Actually, it really rained last night and this morning hard here. I don't know what everyone else has, but no sunshine today yet. It has been a wet morning, which we needed a good soaker overnight
I was just
anyway.
gonna say, we definitely needed it, but I wasn't paying attention because when I woke up and the ground was wet, I was like, oh, it's gonna rain. And I did hear this morning that it was gonna be spotty showers, so not all day. But me coming back from, I don't know if our listeners have ever been to San Diego, but that was my first time going. And oh my goodness, I have never experienced weather quite like San Diego weather. It was like 75, sunny, no humidity. And for those of us who have curly hair, it was wonderful out there. All right, we have about 2 more minutes. I know Vanita is calling in from New York and Kathy is calling in from Elk Ridge. Anybody else want to share where they're calling in from? Hi, DL. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce, how you would like your name said, but welcome, welcome. Paula, do you have 11:58?
I do. I do.
And if you want to share your screen now, so get us ready, you can throw the title page. Hi, DL. Awesome.
Okay.
I see it perfectly. Move
Great.
everybody up to the top here to make sure that we get everybody in. And again, we'll start in about 1 minute. You need to run to the restroom, grab some water, some tea, whatever you like to get comfortable.
I was telling Stacy earlier that I just got back from my regular dermatologist mole patrol checkup. So how appropriate that it fell on this day because I scheduled it, I don't know, 6 months ago or maybe more. It just was kind of funny, ironic that I went to the dermatologist this morning, got my checkup, and then here I am to talk about summer skin.
You didn't plan it that way?
Couldn't have planned it that way if I wanted to.
Yes. All right, so it is 12 o'clock and we are going to get started. Welcome everyone. My name is Stacy Fritz and I am the moderator for today's Food for Thought session. Again, Stacy Fritz. I also am a patient advocate for Believe Big. I'm very lucky. I feel like I've spoken to a couple of you that are on the call. I'd like to introduce you to Paula Weinberg. She is our expert. She's our oncology nutritionist. She's also the owner of HealthSpan Nutrition. We have Paula on frequently, and I feel once again completely blessed to have my partner in crime here with me to share another episode. Today, we're going to be talking about summer skin. Now, a reminder that the name of the show is Food for Thought. So why are we talking about skin? I'm going to let Paula answer that, and cannot wait to fill in some spaces on some things that I would like clarity on, and then also some resources that I've collected over the years. So that said, we're going to kick it off with Paula.
Great, thank you. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm excited to talk about this topic. It's like all things, we take it for granted until there's something, not quite right with it. And summer skin's, no exception. We only kind of pay attention to our skin if it's sunburned or dry or what have you. And so we're going to kind of talk about the care and keeping of our skin in healthy and good ways for summertime. And let's get going. Our skin, as we know, most of us should probably know this and have heard this, our skin is our largest organ. It's also our fastest growing organ. Obviously, there's a lot of cellular turnover with our skin. So the skin is considered an organ because it assumes such a big role in the body, and it regulates so many important physiological processes, such as keeping us protected from the environment. So it's our barrier, our physical barrier to the outside, sensing stimulus outside of us. We all know that we rely on that greatly. Moisture regulation. So that's tied into sweating and keeping our temperature balanced. That's the other big one. Thermoregulation, keeping our body temperature regulated. Hormone synthesis, such as vitamin D. We'll get into that in just a minute. Waste removal. So we all know sweating is an important part of detoxification and removing unwanted things from our systems, and as well as immune surveillance. So, a lot of us, again, don't study the skin or pay too much attention to it unless there's, something amiss there. So it's good to kind of start out with a little bit of a sciencey view about how important and the role that our skin does play in our health, because again, it's sort of a silent player, and a lot of us don't really realize how many important things it does. The skin has many hormone receptors in the skin for dopamine, prolactin, parathyroid hormone, calcitonin, and a whole bunch of other ones that are super sciencey and nobody probably really is too interested in. The hormones that are made by the skin, other than vitamin D, are listed here if anyone's, super interested in the science of it. So, catecholamines like epinephrine and norepinephrine, those are things that are made in response to stress. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff going on in our skin. And we're born with perfect skin, and then life happens to all of us, right? So how the good skin goes bad. So our skin is primarily made of collagen, elastin, hyaluronic acid. Those are sort of the main components of our outer dermis that contribute to like having supple, smooth, and elastic skin. The skin's elasticity and firmness depend on collagen. Again, elastin plays a role in that, in the stretchiness and ability of our skin to kind of bounce back. Hyaluronic acid gives it that plumpness and that youthful appearance. We obviously have and make a lot more hyaluronic acid when we're younger in our skin. We all know the difference between holding a baby and our own skin, right? It's so, so much more plump and youthful. And as we age, there are both internal and external factors that decrease those elements in our skin, the collagen, elastin, hyaluronic acid. The skin becomes more prone to damage and wrinkles and sagging. So the principal environmental factor responsible for skin damage, as we know, it might be the sun, UV radiation, and it's accumulated in our tissues over years of life from both natural and artificial sources. So a few of the key external aging factors are sun rays, other radiation that we don't really think about so much, microwaves, X-rays, artificial lights do create radiation. So that's an important kind of thing. Our life has moved indoors and we don't really think of that. We think we're safe from radiation inside, not necessarily. And some of these others. So there are internal ones that also affect our skin: diet, nutrition, lack of sleep, overeating, alcohol consumption, repetitive muscle movements, that kind of a thing. Let's talk a little bit about the sun's rays, because we're here in the midst of summer, and while the sun isn't blazing outside for me today, the sun is intense this time of year for most of us. So there are three main types of radiation, and I think this little sciencey lesson is worth kind of understanding because it helps us to pick a sunscreen and a protective measure a little bit better, for better educated about kind of what's going on. So there are three kinds of UV radiation from the sun: UVA, UVB, and UVC. UVC is the shortest wavelength here on the right, and it is mainly absorbed by the ozone layer. So we don't really get exposed to much UVC. So UVA and UVB are the main players. UVA has the longest wavelength, and it can penetrate down deeply into the dermis, where UVB radiation only reaches that upper level, that epidermis. So you can see here by how deep that arrow goes downward into the skin. So that is our skin there as an example here in this picture, and then the depth of how much the rays can penetrate. So unlike UVB radiation, UVA can also pass through glass windows. It's also partially transmitted through clothing, and it indirectly causes DNA damage through creating free radicals in the skin. So UVA light accounts for 95%. So the majority of the light that we're exposed to from the sun is UVA. And that is fairly consistent throughout the course of the day. And it penetrates clouds, glass, ozone, and human skin much more deeply than the UVB rays. UVB rays account for only 5% of the UV radiation, yet it's also directly linked to DNA mutation and immune suppression in our bodies. The intensity of UVB, unlike UVA, those deeper penetrating layers, the UVB is very sensitive to the height of the sun, and that depends on where you are in the country or the world, the season, the time of day, etc. So the UVB to UVA ratio is always changing because that is variable on the UVB side, but it's not variable on the UVA side. It's pretty consistent. So it was initially believed that UVB was the primary player in skin cancer, and it was basically the target of those early generation sunscreens. But it's now known that UVA plays a role as well. It's not as direct as DNA damage, but rather it creates oxidative stress and free radicals, and it degrades vitamin D. So even the most effective UVA sunscreen filter, which is titanium dioxide, only blocks a quarter of the UVA rays. And indoor tanning devices can deliver 5 to 15 times the UVA rays that we'd normally get from the sun. So those are really powerful and to be avoided. So just kind of a tidbit, sunscreen's not a complete antidote to any of the sun's rays. So just kind of have to remember that. So now that I've scared you all about the sun, we're going to kind of bring the conversation a little bit more full circle and balance, because the sun is not to be, the conversation we're having today is not to make you afraid of the sun or reluctant to have sun exposure, because that's not my goal at all. We need the sun, but none of us would be here on the planet, nor would any form of life be here without the sun. And we're all intrinsically and just inherently drawn to the sun. So the role that the sun plays in our health is a bit complex, but suffices to say that sun exposure is linked to vitamin D production, and it also seems to have health promoting capacity beyond that as well. So it's been found that exposure to UV radiation may influence the pathology of several diseases in a way that can't be explained just by vitamin D levels or supplementation alone. So in other words, sun exposure and vitamin D, we can't really separate those, even for scientific study, because we're all exposed to the sun at some level, and we certainly wouldn't want to lock someone away without any sunlight ever. That wouldn't be approved by any study. So low vitamin D status is widely acknowledged risk factor for, developing illness, from anything from cancer to autoimmune to COVID to a common cold. But studies on increasing vitamin D levels via supplementation alone don't always bear out the positive findings in terms of reducing disease risk. So research has raised the question of whether poor vitamin D status can be taken as an indication of insufficient sun exposure. Current research is looking at other potential effects of sun exposure beyond synthesis of vitamin D. For example, how it releases nitric oxide into the blood, and as well as the sun's impact on genetic material in our skin and blood, which some of those genes govern immunity and can have really powerful, systemic consequences. So sun exposure is often villainized by like the media and of course, sunscreen companies over the past, many decades. But think about it. Work and our lives have primarily become sedentary and indoor. Even from 50 years ago, people are indoors much, much more. So work has moved us indoors, life has moved us indoors, yet the rates of skin cancer are skyrocketing. So let that kind of compute for a minute. And the rates of skin cancer aren't rising in outdoor workers, but those who work indoors and have low sun exposure. We all probably know or have heard of someone who has had skin cancer on a part of their body that doesn't get any sun, like the soles of the feet. That's actually a very common place to have melanoma found. So always look at moles and the bottom of your feet when you're examining your skin for skin changes. So you see the link between sun exposure and our health is complicated, and it's not really fully understood in a scientific way that's easily explained, but I think we have to strike a healthy balance with the sun and not overreact and become terrified of being out in the sun, but also taking practical and healthy measures to avoid risky sun exposure or excess sun exposure. So the bottom line with sun exposure for me would be about 10 to 25 minutes of sun exposure around lunchtime, like, basically high sun, so those peak sun hours, to strengthen your immune system, maintain good health, get some vitamin D, and get some of those intangible ways that the sun just helps us be healthy. A max of 30 minutes of unprotected sun exposure during peak hours, or when the UV index is really high. Your eyes should also be protected from the sun. Wearing sunglasses or a hat is always a good idea when you're in that very bright sunshine. So hopefully that helps you to kind of keep everything in perspective. So that brings us to sunscreen. So we're out in the sun, we're all, enjoying summer activities. How do we protect ourselves? So all sunscreens are not made equal, and we're going to talk about kind of how they're different and what to look for and how to shop for them and all the details. So sunscreens are categorized based on how they're filtering the UV rays. There are physical barriers, which are known as mineral or non-soluble, and chemical barriers that are known as organic or soluble. And there's sometimes sunscreens combine the two, but the two main physical UV filters that are used are zinc oxide and titanium dioxide. Over 50 years of research has shown that both zinc oxide and titanium dioxide are safe for use and effective at reflecting UV radiation. They also provide the most comprehensive protection for all skin types. As a result, zinc oxide and titanium dioxide are the two highest rated filters due to their stability, safety, and efficacy. Chemical filters, on the other hand, absorb a small spectrum of UV radiation and convert that radiation into a heat energy via a chemical reaction. So the way they protect us from the sun is very different. The physical barriers, zinc oxide and titanium dioxide, are physically blocking the sun and reflecting it back. And the chemical filters are absorbing it and transforming it into something else. So because those chemical filters have limited absorption ranges, a lot of them have to be combined into and use multiple chemicals in one formulation to get your broad spectrum kind of sun protection. So we'll get to the names of those different chemicals shortly in a slide coming up. But the main difference between the physical and the chemical, other than their composition, is that physical sunscreen reflects UV and chemical filters absorb UV radiation. So obviously you also want to have generally a sunscreen that's SPF 30 or greater, and how we apply it is also really important as to whether we're actually getting the SPF that's on the bottle, because the way these things are designed and tested in a lab for the sun protection is based on a certain amount of application. And we all know that, especially if we have kids involved, you know, if we're either doing this outside without a mirror and we can't really see what we're, you know, where we're missing or what we're putting on, or someone's putting it on for us, we don't really have control necessarily, or the best, you know, application of sunscreen all the time. So these little spoons next to each part of the body are representative of how much you should be putting on. So a teaspoon for, your face and your neck, a teaspoon for each arm, 2 for your torso, and 2 for each leg, or a full shot glass for the whole body. So that's important to keep in mind, that you're applying as much as perhaps was applied in a lab to test that sunscreen to give it the SPF it has, you know. I couldn't do a talk about sunscreens without talking about this because it's such a significant issue in our world. There's so much impact from sunscreen use and in our sea life and in our water, which also then affects us as people. So what's going on us is going into the whole world. And based on a study in 2019, 1/5 of the world's coral reefs have died off, and there's a growing awareness of what role sunscreen is playing in that. In 2021, Hawaii banned 2 major ingredients in sunscreens, in the chemical sunscreens, oxybenzone and octinoate, due to the negative impacts on the ocean and marine life. So if you go to Hawaii, you cannot use those chemicals on your sunscreen. I don't know how they police that, but studies have identified UV filters such as oxybenzone, octinoate, octocrylene, and some of these others in almost all water sources around the world. And they've also said that that the filters that are commonly used in wastewater treatment plants don't remove them. So they're potentially around forever, and they're coming back into our bodies in other ways. So it is said that a single drop of oxybenzone is diluted in more than 4 million gallons of water is still enough to endanger organisms. That's a little scary. You see the stats here. These are probably old because by the time studies are done, it's years in the making. So these stats on the 6,000 to 14,000 tons of sunscreen ending up in coral reefs each year, that's probably a good bit more because that data was probably done 5 years ago. So what isn't good for us isn't good for any form of life. And it's important to sometimes draw that connection because we're able to sometimes have more empathy and see something being a powerful effect and impact on a sea creature or coral versus ourselves, because the impact on us is not so immediate, whereas it is for the earth. How to shop for sunscreen. So what do we do? How do we get to the right place here? The best thing that I would recommend is going to this website called environmentalworkinggroup.org. It's a nonprofit, and they're sort of the consumer reports, I would say, of a lot of things. Like they are, in theory, an objective organization that is gathering data that is meant to just objectively give you information and knowledge that'll help you make better decisions. And they have a whole sunscreen guide. You can input your sunscreen name here. Like if you're on the website, maybe if we have time at the end, we can go to this and play with it a little if you want. But you can input your data. You can also click on, their top recommendations. But basically, safe sunscreens, non-toxic sunscreens, they're all going to be the physical barriers versus the chemical barriers. And, you want to look for some of these, buzzwords. These are the top ingredients to avoid in your sunscreen. Again, these are all found in the chemical sunscreen formulations, and there is some tricky marketing going on, and you have to really be a savvy consumer when you're buying sunscreen, because like, for example, I just took a little snip from the EWG website here of this banana boat kids. It's mineral enriched, but it is still chemical based. So it still has the oxybenzone and the other things in it, but it also has some of the physical barrier. I forget if it's zinc or titanium, dioxide in it. So it's a combo sunscreen, but it only gets a 3 because it still has some of those chemical components. You really want that green bar to be where you're at for the safest sunscreens when you're on that EWG website. these are just some grabs that brands that I know of that are cleaner, less toxic, and much more much more friendly to our bodies. So these are not by any means exhaustive or the ones that I, would only recommend or anything, like that. They're just representative of a whole class of sunscreens that are out there. You can find a whole lot more on EWG, and that might suit your needs better. And the format, of the delivery of the sunscreen, you can also kind of play around with that.
Paula, let me stop you there for 1 second. I just wanted to share with our listeners today that at the end of your presentation, we will be sharing a couple of links. They will also be in the summary notes of folks, for example, like Beauty Counter, and then another one that you're going to share with us, that they'll be able to get a discount if they're interested in pursuing some of these products. We actually have a couple of folks that we're connected to with Believe Big, and we'll pass those along to our listeners. So I know that the information can get a little overwhelming in terms of which way do we go, and I love EWG, but we'll get them kickstarted a little bit faster as well, just to start with a product or two if they are interested.
That's great. Wonderful. That's such a great offering. I wanted to talk real briefly about these next generation sunscreens. These are sunscreens that contain antioxidants as well as the normal SPF kind of, options. So it's, we're always trying to evolve and kind of one up whatever's been around before. And the way that they're kind of going about this is probably a function of just marketing and wanting to sell more products or maybe, improve on things. But to combat the negative effects of sunlight on the skin, additives are being proposed or used to enhance the photo protection and help prevent the photo aging of the sun. So topical antioxidants, we've all seen vitamin C serums as a moisturizer or touting, anti-aging. So topical antioxidants have been formulated now into sunscreens to help replenish those that are being, the sun is creating free radicals and reactive oxygen species, and antioxidants are the antidote to those. So the antioxidants are being proposed to kind of combat what is happening naturally through the sun. For example, a study looking at skin exposed to UVB found that sunscreens with SPF and a mixture of caffeine, vitamin E, vitamin C, echinacea, Gorgonian extract, I don't even really know what that is, and chamomile essential oil. This was just a study demonstrated some benefits over a plain just sunscreen SPF alone.
So Paula, are you endorsing that? Or are you saying buyer beware and just be careful?
No, I think it's just a big question mark of whether of the role that these are going to play in the future and whether these are actually shown to be beneficial for the skin. Because again, I'm going to kind of circle back on this in a bit, but there's more to the story. And so I think that this is a great initial response, but I don't know what the science is going to bear out, whether these topical antioxidants are actually helping quench the oxidants, the oxidation that's happening in the skin, or if there could be potential downside to this. So I think the jury's out on this, but I wanted to, kind of talk about that for people, because I wanted to just kind of let them know that this is, it's still being studied. So polyphenols, as you know, things that are good for us inside, eating in our foods, the brightly colored fruits and vegetables and all the antioxidants and polyphenols and things that are in those foods can also be applied topically and have benefits to our skin. Whether applying it in the setting of the actual sun exposure is the best place and time, I'm not sure about that, but it's just, it makes a lot of sense that these things are good for the outside of our skin as they are for the inside of our body. But one thing that I want to bring up is why I have the caution with citrus here is I wrote a paper on melanoma, had a deep dive on this in the past few years. And there's a connection between citrus fruits and melanoma occurrence that bears a little bit of explanation. So the mechanism underlying the association between citrus fruits and melanoma could be based on the presence of these natural components in citrus, which are psoralins and furocoumarins. and they're particularly dominant in grapefruit. So research has shown that psoralins and fumarcomerins can interact with UV light to stimulate proliferation of melanoma cells. So for example, with a treatment of psoriasis called photochemotherapy, where they try to help people who are having severe psoriasis, they give them the psoralen, the oral psoralen, which is, again, they give a chemical version of that, but it's the same thing that occurs in citrus fruits naturally. And they expose them to UVA light, and that helps treat their psoriasis. But studies bear out that long-term, this light treatment therapy can increase the risk of melanoma. And generally speaking, evidence regarding the association between dietary consumption of psoralen-rich foods and melanoma risk is inconclusive. So no one's saying that eating citrus is going to give you melanoma, but considering that citrus fruits are long advocated for their benefits, they're trying to confirm the findings before making a suggestion about the role of psoralins and citrus fruit active components with the interaction with the sun. So my takeaway from reading all that research was kind of, we don't really know what that impact is, but perhaps if you're out in long-term peak heat sun exposure, perhaps that's not the best time to drink your lemonade, right in during the same time where you're having those intake, that active intake of the citrus with the active heavy sun. That might not be the best combination. We don't know yet, but just wanted to kind of put that out there. Knowledge is power. These are some important sunscreen alternatives and or additions. There are so many companies out there that are creating these other, helpful layers and things that are sometimes very customized. People who have maybe had skin cancer on their hand or some area that's a little bit harder to cover, they have, like an appropriate, like lightweight, almost like a glove that can be worn. But you obviously wouldn't want to wear a winter glove out on the beach. It would be very hot. So there are a lot of great protective elements here that you can get. And SPF is a little bit different than UPF. SPF is sun protective factor. UPF is ultraviolet protection factor. And it's a measurement standard of how much UV light passes through the fabric before reaching your skin. SPF reflects how long it takes to sunburn while you're wearing that sunscreen. So they're a little bit different. The bottom line is, you want to get, for me, you want to get your daily dose of sunshine. I don't think you should be afraid of the sun. I think we all need sun exposure on a regular basis. It helps regulate our circadian rhythm and probably many, many other things about our bodies, but we want to be smart about it. If we're going to be out in intense sun and prolonged exposure, beyond our good little daily dose, we want to have some sunscreen that is at least SPF or greater. We want unexposed sun. We want to have our hat and clothing protection and kind of be smart about what areas of our body we're exposing for what period of time in really intense sunlight. Since there is really no such thing as a safe tan, despite my teenage daughters really don't want to hear this, and they really aren't interested in any of this information yet. But that is the truth, because tanning really is a response from the skin to DNA damage, really is what we're seeing. We're seeing the melatonin kind of come up, and we can be sure if we have a tan that there's been some damage behind that. So it's been reported that approximately 80% of skin aging on our face can be attributed to the sun exposure. So again, for me, it's about kind of being smart. And this is a cleaner version of self-tanner, the cleanest one I've found. Am I saying that this is, what you should do all the time and use this regularly? I think, no, you should be cautious about anything you put on your skin. Use this, carefully and appropriately, and, don't apply things to your skin you wouldn't consume without thinking hard about them. Okay, so you tried all the things, but you still got sunburn. What do we do now? Because that happens to the best of us. So if you've got an aloe plant in your house, great to have around, you know, crack a leaf open, apply that aloe right to your skin. It's great. You can also it's harder to find pure aloe in a packaged container in a store. If you look, a lot of those post-sun remedies have like a hint of aloe in it and 25 more other ingredients in them. So be careful what you're buying. It's hard to find pure aloe. BioFirst Skincare is a company that I also recommend to people going through radiation therapy. Again, it's great for burns and it's helpful. Calendula cream is another great one for burns, and it applies again for people who are going through radiation treatments as well. There's a whole category of after sun products on that same website where you can find good, clean sunscreens. So you can also find your after sun products online, but sometimes simple is best and easiest, and having an aloe plant around is great.
Paula, can you roll back to that one?
Yeah,
So
sure.
somebody was beyond just investigating at EGW. I mean, can you buy the calendula cream or the BioFirst like on Amazon, or they have their own websites? Because we'll make sure that our listeners get those links as well.
The BioFirst has its own website. I don't believe that's available online. Sorry, it is available online, but not on Amazon. I learned about BioFirst and first tried it through a conference I recently went to in Toronto. And so I got a sample of that. It's a lovely, lovely cream. And that's available through their website, BioFirst Skincare. The calendula cream is made by Boron, and that is pretty common now. I see it on a lot of different stores and drugstores, probably even like a Target kind of.
Yeah.
They're around in store.
Bonnie, who's listening, said that she got hers on Amazon. So good to know.
Yeah. Yeah. They're pretty readily available. Yeah. And we all know that, you know, so we've had a day at the beach, we go take our shower and we find our skin feels dry now. We've hopefully taken some good measure to get some natural friction to get that sunscreen off of us, you know, with a washcloth or something, because that is, you know, we don't want that on our skin 24/7. So you want to get that cleansed well. And if we feel dry after all of that, well, you know, of course, the salt from the ocean can be a little bit drying, but moisture always starts from within. So make sure you're hydrating well by drinking your purified water, that you're getting adequate omega-3s either in through your diet and or supplementation. And topically, some of the like most simple ingredients that you can use if you have around, you know, some coconut oil, you can take a little bit of that and rub it into your skin. You know, shea butter is another, you know, natural source of moisture for us. Some of these, you know, things you can, you know, use on their own or look for them, you know, in a product. But you always want to buy, if you're buying something that is an oil-based product, if it's for your cooking purposes or your skin application purposes, you always want that to be in glass, not in plastic. So to continue on the moisture conversation, here are some brands of clean moisturizer and other, you know, other skincare products as well. Some of these companies might also have sunscreens that are good, but just wanted to kind of put some of these out there for you all. And again, I believe Anne-Marie, is Anne-Marie the one that we'll have a link to? Dr. Nasha refers to Dr. Nasha Winters, who is a top integrative oncologist that, you know, was one of my teachers and certainly puts a lot of great information out there. You can Google her, Dr. Nasha Winters, and on her website, she does have a link to recommended products that she endorses. And these are two that I know she likes, and some of the others that, you know, we know about.
I'm going to do a quick shout out for Beauty Counter as well. I love all of these on your list. Beauty Counter is one that I use, and I really like their sunscreen a lot. We actually have a local lady who gives us great information on Beauty Counter products. So those are the two links that I was referencing earlier, is the Anne-Marie Skincare and then the Beauty Counter, of course.
Yeah.
we'll make sure
Yeah.
that our listeners get those.
Great. And last kind of mention is the bugs. Like, so we're outside and, you know, the bug issue. So a lot of people are also, you know, this is another heavy summertime, potentially toxic skin exposure is the, you know, the DEET bug spray that we might find, which is like commonly, you know, most people know of Off, that brand Off, with the bug spray. And I'm sure it does work well, but it has a lot of potential consequences when it's, you know, being absorbed through your body systemically, by applying it all over your skin. There are a lot of options out there, so many more. I mean, they're coming out, you know, every year there's more and more focus on cleaner products, and people are becoming more aware of the connection between what they put on their body and what they put into the environment and all of that. So these are just some brands that are easily found online and or possibly in stores. Wonderside is one I know if your dog or cat will let you, you can spray them with that directly with it before they're going to be kind of out in like any kind of woods or where you think they might be exposed to like ticks and things. My dog isn't so easily approached with that, like the first spray and she takes off. So she's not too interested in that. But you may have a more compliant animal, because here in Maryland, at least for me, we constantly are picking ticks off of my dog. So we just can't keep up with the tick exposure. I went for a walk down my paved street. I do not live out in the woods. I mean, there's woods in the back of my house for sure, but down a regular old, just, you know, suburban, you know, paved street. And about 5 minutes into my walk, I looked down and there was a tick on my foot. I have no idea how that even is possible. Like I wasn't in the grass or even walking on the edge of the grass. Like I don't even understand. So
Wow.
I've had 2 ticks I've picked off myself in the past like month this summer. And that's not from being, again, it was just from walking the dog on the street.
Paula, let me
So,
stop you real quick for a comment. DL Feeney may need to come off of mute because I'm not sure what she's referencing in terms of what she's suggesting. She says, I've recently heard beef tallow is good. She bought some at Sprouts and it was a little bit pricey. And of course, it does smell a little beefy. And she's wondered about self tanners because 2 of her adult daughters also use a clean self tanner. So DL, if you don't want to come off of mute, are you using the beef? What did you hear that the beef tallow was good for that Paula might be able to chime in on, or we can research it offline?
yeah, I'm not quite sure the connection there.
Yeah, I'm just waiting to see. She can either put it in
Yeah.
chat or come off mute.
Yeah, beef tallow can be a healthy, you know, play a healthy role in cooking and you know, in diet. But I'm not
Yes,
sure in this context of skin, how it might be used.
Gail, you want to comment to Paula? I saw her. She may be on mute. Go ahead and stick it in the chat and I'll pick it up there since you're still on mute.
Are they able to unmute themselves?
I'm
Sometimes.
not, maybe not. So Dale, if you want clarification, go ahead and stick with whatever question or comment you have in the chat and we'll pick it up in just a moment, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Paula, you can feel free to go ahead. We'll catch her and when she's finished.
Sure. Well, that pretty much kind of wraps up our segment on summer skin. And I want to leave plenty of time to chat because this is, you know, very much a conversational topic and where, you know, you all might be able to share, you know,
Yeah.
you
So-
like or.
Dale, you can come on, you are off mute, so you can ask Paula correctly to make sure that I'm understanding you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry. I have this screen up that's blocking. I can't see you and I can't
Yeah,
even
no
see
worries.
my words. There's someone I follow who's wonderful, holistic. Actually, it's Holistic Hilda, who's hilarious, who anyhow, I think she recommended beef tallow for moisturization, and I've heard of
Oh.
some others as well, because I use coconut oil a lot on my body. and I just wanted another form of way to moisture. So I did buy some beef tallow, but it's thick and it does smell a little beefy. My dog goes crazy when I open the jar.
That's good
And
to
I was
know.
trying to look up the clean self tanner that my oldest uses. She's quite a researcher, and she does use it, you know, on her legs. And I'm just curious about it. I've been hesitant to use any self tanners just because I'm so careful about what I put on my skin.
Yeah, what is the self tanner she uses?
I'm trying to look it up on Amazon because I think it's on Amazon that it would be on our order. So when I find it, I will let you know. And I
Well, and
did find
you can
one or two BioFirst products on Amazon as you were talking, but not a lot. So
Gotcha. Well, you know what you can do, DL, is if you find that self tanner, we are always open to putting out resources after we take a look at them. So Paula and I don't know everything. We know some things. And as a community, when we come together, we know we're better together. So if you have something you'd like to share, Paula's got her slide up here on how to reach out to Paula directly. And if you don't have a pen or you don't have a phone to take a screenshot, you are welcome to reach out to me directly. I will connect you with Paula. Mine is stacy@believebig.org. So as we come to an end, I want to make sure that there aren't any questions for Paula directly. And of course, I hope that you know that you didn't have to write anything down, because we will make sure that you've got a very good summary along with those 2 links that I was talking about. Beauty Counter is offering 20% off to new customers. As I mentioned, that's something I use personally. Their sunscreen is great. My big thing is I don't want to, I want to do all of the protection, but I don't want to be covered in white. That is annoying to me. And I also don't care for super greasy thick. And I find that one just works great. They've got a face one and a body one. And as Paula mentioned, it's not an endorsement for any one product. We get asked all the time. I always like to share what I use personally. You can use it or find another one that might work for you. The thing that I am taking away, Paula, today is, for me, the way I organize information is, we know that the skin is the largest organ in the body. If the show is really about nutrition, to reframe it a little bit, Paula said it a couple of times, but we want to be as careful with the foods that we are consuming. Just like that, we want to be as careful with the things that we are putting topically on our skin. That is like food for your skin, right? And so if we're going to be eating clean, we may as well be applying clean, or as clean as we possibly can. And so now you can't unknow that information. I heard 2 really big important ingredients that we want in our sunscreen that I'm not even going to try, except for zinc oxide, to pronounce. And then I also heard lots and lots of different choices. But the biggest one I heard is, take a look at EWG. That site sounds to me like it's going to be a really great reference for all of us who are trying to do a little bit better. I think that would be a great place that I would start. I also have an app on my phone called, funny enough, called Think Dirty. And you can actually put in, you can scan the QR code, and it will do similar thing like the EWG and give you a grade in terms of red, yellow, green, hoping that you get into the green arena. We didn't talk about like makeup and things like that, but those are big products that we want to take a look at and use Paula's reference for clean, non-toxic, and green as much as we possibly can. We know our makeup products tend to have a lot of chemicals in there that may not be as good for our skin as we would like them to be. As always, to take this and do a complete overhaul of your products, nobody's recommending that. What we're saying is you start to replenish with a healthier product. Because we are in the summertime, my suggestion or invitation would be to look at your sunscreen first. Just start there, start small. Nobody's asking you to be overloaded with more information, more things to do. Like I said before, we're gonna sweeten it up a little bit and give you a discount if you wanna take a look at that. But as always, feel free to reach out to me directly if you want to send me questions for Paula, I can pass them through, or take a screenshot of the slide that's up on the screen right now of her information. She is taking private clients, and I highly, highly recommend. So if nobody has any more questions, we do. Hold on. Oh, DL is back and she has it. So Paula, we're going to take a look at Beauty by Earth Self Tanner.
Beauty by Earth Self Tanner. Okay. All
Yes.
right.
And then Andrea's put a link in there. Andrea, I'm not sure that what that looks like a baby kid's sunscreen. Are you asking, or you know that this is a clean one? Let's see. Andrea, if you, I mean, is this something that you use and you're recommending, or you're asking us to do a little research on it for you? All righty. So we'll wait for Andrea to get back to us, and if not, she can hang out online and we'll answer. Oh, she's no recommended. You are recommending, or you're not? I apologize. Maybe I'm a little slow today. So no recommended. Are you, so you're not recommending it, or you are recommending it? No worries, no worries. All right, my friends, she's recommending it. She's recommending it. So the link is in the chat if you're interested for youth sunscreen. If there are no other questions, as always, it has been both of our pleasures to have you here on the show, and look for those summary notes, look for those links, reach out if you have any questions, and we look forward to seeing you next month. I love you all, and I am praying big for each and every one of you. God bless, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for joining. See you next time. Bye-bye.